Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome into the very first inaugural episode of the Fantasy Fax Podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Drew. I got my co-host David here. We're really excited to kind of kick off this journey with you all. We're really passionate about fantasy football. We play probably too many leagues, more than we should be probably. But we just love it so much, and um, we just have toyed with this idea for a long time. We've even kickstarted it a little bit and then slowed down. And so we're just really excited to hit the ground running full steam. We really made a lot of updates to when we previously had started. Got some new equipment, got better ways to record. So hopefully you guys hear better sound quality, video quality, but you're still getting all the same great ideas, content, and everything that we were trying to provide before, but with poorer resources. So, um, like I said, David and I, we're very passionate about fantasy football. We're excited to kick off this podcast with y'all. We've been dropping some hints about this episode on over on the social medias. Once we start posting content on the wow, I can't find the word on the podcast side of things, you're going to start seeing a lot more coming on the social media side of things as well. So be looking for that. We're over on X at the Fantasy Fax. Fax is spelled FAX, just so everybody knows. We're on TikTok at fantasy.fax, Instagram at fantasy.fax. And these podcasts will be going up on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, all under the name Fantasy Fax Podcast. I'm gonna let David jump in right quick, if you will, and say hello. And then I'll give you a little update on kind of what we're doing with some of our summer content leading up to the season, and then we'll jump right in.
How's it going, everybody? My name's David, like Drew said. Just very excited to get going with some proper equipment here. A couple test runs in the past. Just really looking forward to making content for everybody and hopefully helping you all out and being on a regular schedule for the first time and sticking to that for you guys.
Yeah, that's a good jump in, David, as I talk about the schedule. So, the plan for David and I is to the best of our ability. David's a busy college student. I'm a I'm a full-time employed hospital employee, so I mean we have a lot going on, but our goal is to be putting out 2 episodes a week from for you guys from June 30th when this will be posted all the way through the fantasy football season, if you will. Those episodes ideally are going to be dropping on Tuesdays and Fridays. Um, and so you can expect those to be coming out pretty regularly on those days. If we're ever going to have a little delay or something, we'll obviously make sure to let you know via our social medias and probably on the episode prior. Um, to start our like summer content since we're still in the off season. Not a ton of NFL news coming out, little bits and pieces, of course, but pretty quiet still right now. Um, we're going to be jumping into some divisional breakdowns to start. So we're going to go the next 8 episodes. We're going to be breaking down some. We're going to be breaking down each division. Really want to focus on big changes from last year. We know a lot of people who play fantasy football. You're in fantasy football mode from September until the season ends, and then fantasy football is out of your mind. NFL is out of your mind all spring and summer. A lot happens in the off season, so we want to make sure that we're updating you guys quickly on what kind of has changed and how we want to change our views and our ideas about these teams as we come into the next season, not just relying on last year's performance in a vacuum. Um, so the first episode that we're gonna start with today, the first division we're gonna start with is the AFC East. So we're gonna be breaking down the Patriots, Dolphins, Bills, and Jets. Some juicy teams in there, some not so juicy teams in there, but that's how the NFL is, right? So we're gonna jump in and kind of go team by team. Just to remind everybody about how things went in the AFC East last year. The New York Jets finished in fourth place with a record of 3-14. Sorry, Jets fans, we love you. Um, the Dolphins were in third place with a record of 7-10. The Bills had a nice season. They went 12-5. They were a AFC wildcard team and did make the playoffs. And then everybody knows, obviously, the New England Patriots were 14-3, kind of the surprise of the season, I would say, and how big of a jump they had. They were the AFC East champions, and they were the AFC champions, eventually falling in the Super Bowl to the Seattle Seahawks. David, you want to start from the bottom or you want to start from the top?
Let's go from the bottom. Let's make our way up, I think.
I love it. Let's jump in with the Jets. New York Jets. A lot of changes on the Jets this offseason, so I actually do think they're an interesting team to talk about, even though it was a rough season for them last year. Um, in the coaching slash coordinator realm of changes, somehow head coach did keep his job. I was a little bit surprised about that. But there were some changes on the coordinator positions. Tanner Engelstrand, who was the offensive coordinator last year, was fired. And this offseason was replaced by former Colts head coach, Frank Reich, who I think is a pretty well-known name around the NFL. So that's definitely going to change the offense a little bit. And the head coach is a defensive-minded guy, so that doesn't surprise me that he went in a new direction there. Outgoing fantasy contributors, if you can call them contributors, Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor, both quarterbacks that played significant time last year for the Jets, are gone. They made the offseason move to bring in Geno Smith, and it really appears like he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Jets. They did go weapon heavy in the draft, so I'm really excited to talk about these guys. In the first round, they had 2 first-round picks. They selected tight end Kenyon Sadiq from the University of Oregon, and then they also selected wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr., who played for the college football playoff champion Indiana Hoosiers. And then also just want to shout out, not a new player coming in, but there was a lot of controversy and kind of worry surrounding him last year because of his contract situation, but Breece Hall did get a nice extension, so congrats to Breece Hall, and he appears locked in as the running back 1 going forward there for the foreseeable future. Anything to add, David, about incomings or outgoing players, coaches, things like that?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna throw in there. We are aware of the legal situation regarding Geno Smith right now. Obviously, not a lot has come out about that, but that is worth monitoring. I have seen reports of Carson Wentz being linked to the Jets as well via trade recently. If that were to happen, obviously that would be a little bit of a shakeup in the room, but otherwise, I would expect Geno Smith to take that job, just as long as he doesn't end up in some sort of suspension due to legal issues.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's great. I forgot to mention that. I sure hope nobody's relying on Geno Smith this year at the quarterback position, but you never know. But you're right, it could really impact those weapons, right? And there's actually quite a few people on the Jets considering how poor they were last year. Speaking to how poor the Jets were last year, unfortunately going to rub a little salt in the wound. We always want to look at some statistics when we're talking fantasy football. We're obviously very offensive focused, and there's a few things that really predict success of your fantasy players in general. High rate of play is great. High pass rate over expectation is great. We want to look at your play breakdown of run plays versus pass plays, how many points you score, all those types of things are indicative of fantasy points. Kind of all around, the Jets were not an awesome offense for fantasy purposes last year. They were 25th in plays per game, 23rd in pass rate over expectation, 31st in EPA per play. EPA per play is basically how many more fantasy points than expected you get per play, and they were almost a whole 0.2 of a point worse. So not great. their plays were not very valuable, is basically what that's saying. They had a just over 45% run percentage, which was the 12th highest in the NFL. I was actually surprised it was that high considering they were losing all their games, but still like to run the ball on the heavier side. And they put up only 17.6 points per game, which was 29th in the NFL. Um, so really, really poor offensive numbers across the board. But maybe there's some new juice here. So let's jump into kind of how we think some of these ingoing, outgoing coaching changes, that kind of stuff is going to impact the Jets, David.
Yeah, as much as I'm not a Geno Smith fan, I do think right off the bat you are seeing improvement in the passing game. Always kind of rooted for Justin Fields. It's become very evident he is not a good thrower of the football in the NFL. Garrett Wilson's going to get a big jump as far as his accurate targets, I would say. It's going to be big for his targets and receptions per game for sure, and I would expect a pretty big boost in the touchdown department as well, just because Geno Smith has proven he can support fantasy receivers in the past in Seattle. So we just know that going into that. On top of that, I think Brees Hall benefits from that as well. He's going to be catching more passes due to the Geno Smith being a lot less mobile than Justin Fields was. So right off the bat, they're the two biggest fantasy studs in that offense are going to be big benefactors of the quarterback change, and as well as the other weapons in that offense. Just everybody other than quarterback position is going to be a big boost in the fantasy game this year.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not sure how much I love the improvement for Garrett Wilson. I get where you're coming from. Better quarterback, more catchable targets, all that stuff. Um, the only thing with Garrett Wilson is he's one of those target like pie machines, right? Like he's just eats up such a large amount of the pass attempts for his team. That was with Rodgers, that was with Fields. It didn't matter, right? Like he was just an animal in terms of the targets and the amount of plays directed at him. I don't necessarily think that's going to totally change, of course, because everybody knows that Garrett Wilson is a great wide receiver. But they did draft two pass catchers in the first round. So I do wonder if the pie is going to get divvied up a little bit more this year, right? They brought in a really nice looking tight end to work the middle of the field. Omar Cooper Jr., obviously, first round wide receiver. We would expect him to be involved in the offense pretty quickly. Um, I don't remember off the top of my head, so if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I believe he's on the upperclassman side, just like most of the Indiana players were, because a lot of them were brought in as transfers. Um, and generally, those older guys tend to be able to jump into the NFL and play right away a little bit faster. So I do wonder with Garrett Wilson if the efficiency goes up and the volume goes down, and you kind of get more of an evening out. That'll kind of be the balance on him. I think my view on him is going to be very, very ADP dependent because I don't love the offense. And if he's going super, super high, I just think there's going to be higher upside guys around. But if his ADP has slipped a little bit compared to what it was last year because he didn't really come through on that ADP so much, I think that could make him a valuable player depending on what round he's going in. But you really hammered home the biggest point for me. The biggest winner in this is Brees Hall, right? Brees Hall was great last year when he was playing and not dealing with contract extension talks, and it everybody was focused on the field. He was playing fantastic. He looked good, considering he wasn't on a very good offense. And that was with a mobile quarterback who liked to tuck it and run, right? That is not Geno Smith. He's going to get way more dump offs. He's going to catch way more passes this year. So if he's equally as efficient in the run game and catches so many passes from Geno Smith, I really, really like Brees Hall to have a great season. And he's coming off that payday, so we know his contract situation is secure, and there'll be far less off-season, off-the-field drama this year as well. So, yeah, big fan of the boost Brees Hall gets. Curious to see what happens with Garrett Wilson. A little bit more skepticism, but also hopefulness.
I
Um,
do think it is also worth mentioning, not just totally naive to the fact that the Jets did use three running backs last year quite a bit, and just it's worth monitoring into the beginning of the season and in training camp, kind of how they're splitting up that work share. Because if Brees Hall's not out there on passing downs for whatever reason, if that's the way the coaching staff goes, obviously that's going to be a big hit to his value. Um, if I was the coach, I'd have him out there for those passing downs, but obviously that's not my job. And so there's a world where that does happen. And if that's the case, you definitely are going to want to be monitoring that because it's going to be a massive hit. And then just going back to what you're saying about Garrett Wilson, I 100% agree. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm thinking, oh, the Jets' passing offense is going to be awesome. I think just the amount of pass attempts per game in general is going to be up. I know there's going to be more targets, but all those design passing plays that Justin Fields ends up running, all those are going to be either dump offs, short over the middle to anybody. I just think the amount of quality targets are going to be a lot higher, or designed passing plays. It's going to be a lot easier to get the ball to them on those plays that they're looking to get the ball to players. And because of that, I think if anything, his floor is kind of in that area of last year, and I think he does have a higher ceiling, despite the maybe loss of a few targets.
yeah, I definitely agree. I think the ceiling's definitely higher this year for sure. Just curious to see how it plays out. Um, David knows I'm a huge Garrett Wilson guy. Like I love Garrett Wilson. I think he's such an amazing receiver. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. So I'm really, really hoping it works out for him, and I guess in turn hoping it works out for the Jets. Um, I come from a family with a large contingent of Iowa State fans, and I've seen a lot of Brees Hall football. And if they didn't put him out there on passing downs, that would be a travesty. But, the Jets might be trying to lose games for Arch, so maybe we'll see Braylon Allen on passing downs or something. Who knows?
I've seen it too many times in the NFL where I just don't just just can't say I understand the decisions the coaches are making. So, um,
Well, and no
yeah,
offense to the Jets fans, but especially the Jets, right?
yeah, the
Yeah,
Jets. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think any of those running backs are bad, but it's just obviously like Brees Hall is way better than everybody and the most well rounded. It just doesn't make sense to force people on the field. It's kind of the same thing with. Well, now I'm trying to think of a good example, but like you see
I
it all the
immediately
time.
thought of the Bucky Irving, Rashad White, how they refused to use Bucky Irving more, even
Yeah,
though he
or
was so much
even I
better.
mean, look at the Bears. Like they both of those running backs are awesome last year, but sometimes I didn't understand like putting Guy out there on passing downs when you have Swift, who's one of the best receiving running backs in the NFL, or just any teams that do things like that. Yeah, it's just frustrating as a fantasy manager when that happens to your players that have skill sets like that.
Yeah, or when Jameer Gibbs is breaking off chunk plays and then the next drive David Montgomery's out there. Those types
Or
of
Jamal
things.
Williams in whatever year where
Yeah,
he's just
there's
got 1 yard touchdowns all year.
yeah, there's always teams, but after paying Brees Hall, I have a feeling Brees Hall's usage is gonna be pretty strong. Um, Anything to add about the Jets, David? We didn't really talk about the coordinator change. I don't know if it's going to make a huge difference. Frank Reich's a little more experienced, I think, but otherwise,
Yeah, I think the players make a bigger difference than the coordinators there. Not a lot to mention there. I mean, maybe a slight boost in efficiency, but
and Aaron Glenn's still running the show, so I think it might be a little bit of a disaster like it was last year, to be honest. But all right,
hey, be nice there.
hey, if the Jets have a bad season, that's good for them, right? Like they have traded and gotten draft picks and they've set themselves up that if they get a quarterback in this quarterback heavy draft class next year, that's what they should
Yeah,
do. So I
Aaron
hope
Glenn's
that's what
gonna do a
happens.
great job at 2 bad seasons getting fired right when Archer Manning comes in.
Exactly. They're gonna bring in a new quarterback to nurture the new quarterback, and he's gonna be an offensive minded coach for sure.
Bill
So,
Belichick? No, no, that's not
yeah.
offensive minded. That was poor timing.
Aaron Glenn is halfway out the door already, unfortunately for him. But um, I think that pretty much covers the Jets. Let's work our way up from the bottom and talk about another disappointing season. The Miami Dolphins finished third last year. There's a theme in this division as we go through. Lots of coaching changes. Um, Head coach Mike McDaniel was fired, and former Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley was hired as the head coach. Bobby Slowick was hired as the new offensive coordinator. Um, I believe he was either with the Texans or was on the Texans and then not on the Texans and was in the free agent coaching pool. I'm not exactly sure how that went down off the top of my head. But Bobby Slowick was involved in a lot of the Texans offense over the last few seasons. Um, Outgoing fantasy contributors, lots of big news there too. Tua Tagovailoa, um, gone, no longer the quarterback in Miami. Huge trade in the offseason. For those of you who don't know where David and I live in Denver, so people are pretty stoked about the trade out here. Jalen Waddle heading from the Dolphins over to the Broncos to get the Broncos another weapon to go along with Sutton and some of those other receivers that they have. And then Darren Waller kind of made a slight return from the dead last season and was fantasy relevant for a very slight period, but he is on his way out as well. Big changes in the offensive incomings as well. Quarterback Malik Willis was signed from the free agency pool. Devon Achane signed a 4-year extension, so running backs also getting paid in this division this offseason. Congrats to Achane. For any of you that listened to our very, very old episodes at the very, very beginning, I am going to have to eat some crow on Devon Achane. So we're not always right. We try to be right most of the time.
Yeah, but somebody here was high on Devon Achane, so
Somebody was. Somebody was.
I won't say who. I won't say who. Let's keep it.
Somebody was high on a lot of bad players as well, but we'll leave that in the past.
Don't mention Trey Lance, bro. Come on.
No, not Trey Lance. I was thinking in the running back realm. You were a big Trey Sermon guy, if I remember.
That was like 2021, man. Come on.
Well, I mean, at this point, Achan was close to that long ago too. But anyways, let's jump in. Tutu Atwell, Jalen Tolbert, and two third round receivers, Caleb Douglas out of Texas and Chris Bell out of Louisville, all come into that wide receiver room. Tyreek Hill, technically still on the Dolphins, I believe. No, gone from the Dolphins, also injured. So I don't know why I didn't have him on the outgoing fantasy contributors, but he should have been on there as well. So, yeah, just big turnover in Miami. I think it's really hard to dissect this offense based on anything from last year. Also drafted a tight end in the third round out of Ohio State. I'm going to butcher his name, but Will Kakmarak, it looks like, was drafted out of Ohio State. Also, some poor statistics from the Dolphins side of things last year. They were 31st in plays per game. They had a negative 5.8% pass rate over expectation. Their EPA per play was 25th in the NFL. They ran at the ninth highest rate, and they put up 20.5 points per game, which was 25th in the NFL. So lots of bad offensive numbers from the Dolphins as well. I will let you start with any of those juicy pieces you would like to start with, David.
Yeah, and just like the Jets, I think the biggest thing to talk about there is quarterback. Malik Willis is a very different player than Tua. Kind of the opposite situation as the Jets, where you're kind of losing that pocket passer quarterback and you're getting a mobile quarterback. Right off the bat, I'm going to mention Devon Achane. It's going to be the lowest I've been on him in potentially his whole career. I think Malik Willis being there is going to absolutely slaughter his receptions. Obviously, not a lot of competition in the reception department, but all those check downs, those little crosses over the middle that Achane just ate up over the past few years of getting 10, 12 catches a game, it's not going to happen. Malik Willis is going to take those, run with them. It's definitely going to limit his upside. If he starts to slip in drafts, though, below ADP, because people are worried about that, I still don't mind taking a flyer on him. It's just gonna have to be lower than his ADP. I was happy drafting him like end of second round last year. Would not probably touch him there right now. Um, and then yeah,
A lot of
the
people had to
other
take him earlier than that last year. I took him early second round, but it paid
okay.
off.
Yeah, I was trying to remember when it might have been the year before when I took him like I don't know. It was his rookie year, I can't remember. Back when him and Raheem Mostert both put up like 49 fantasy points in the same game. That was awesome. Um, but yeah, other than that, a lot of below mediocre pass catching options, I think. So it'll be really interesting to see how they're able to perform on the offensive side of things. I can't say I'm a big Malik Willis believer. There are a lot of people that are high on him. Unfortunately, that happens when I know a lot of Packers fans. But I don't. I just don't. I just don't know what to think of the Miami offense. I think it could be the worst in the NFL, if I'm putting it bluntly.
Wow, harsh words from David. Um, I agree with the general sentiment. No way Achan's as great this year as he was last year. He had a huge workload last year, and I always worry about that with guys' health coming into the following season. Um, my biggest issue with him when I was low on him originally was his frame and his size. They put a lot of tread or a lot of work on that tread last year. So I am interested to see how his body holds up this year. But David covered all the points about non-injury related stuff about why I wouldn't be as high on him this year as I was last year. I actually was really high on him last year considering how low I was with him coming into the league. Um, I'm a college ball watcher, so I will just shout out. I do like Chris Bell's game. He was a pretty decent receiver over at Louisville. I'm not sure how his game's going to translate to the NFL, but he was a great college wide receiver. I liked him a lot. But yeah, the wide receiver room is significantly worse. Um, the quarterback, people will say it's better. I think it's a push. Um, so I just think the weapons got worse. And I don't see how anything really gets that much better. Um, if anything, I think it might get worse. I don't know if there's a single Dolphin I'm really drafting this year, to be completely honest.
Yeah, the only one with upside is Malik Willis. If he's able to be a competent passer and have that rushing upside, I mean he's the guy that could shoot up and be like a fringe top 10 if he's really really dialed in this season. If he proves I guess me wrong. So late round flyer. I mean I don't hate it, but as an NFL quarterback, I don't love it. As a fantasy asset, more so obviously with the rushing upside.
That's true.
But I just don't think the passing can probably get that done. And I also don't like. I mean, they proved they couldn't with Mike McDaniel, but I mean, he was an offensive minded coach, and they've shifted kind of away from that. If correct me if I'm wrong, but
No,
I
you're
think
spot
that
on. Jeff Halfley was
also is
the.
gonna hurt.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, you're spot on. Jeff Halfley was the Packers DC. So, Packers excellent defensive team. As much as David and I loathe them, um, good defense. Ran the defense over there really well. So, um, yeah, I think if anything, they're going to be one of those teams who I actually wonder if they won't win as many games as they did last year, or maybe just one or two less, in that six win range, just because I think they're going to start catering to the defense, right? And they're going to have a defensive minded conservative coach try to keep it close, and they might sneak out more wins than we think at the end. But it's not going to be at the fantasy goodness side of things that we want that they win games. So I'm pretty low on the Dolphins in general this year from a fantasy perspective. Good shout on Malik Willis and the running ability. I just worry he's going to turn into Justin Fields.
Yeah, no, that's would not
Yeah,
be surprised.
yeah. Anything else you want to talk about with the Dolphins before we move into the wonderful, fun offenses of this division?
No, I don't think so. No, just one more mention. I would stay away from basically anybody besides Achan if he slides, and a late flyer on Malik Willis.
Yeah, good summary. Thank you. Um, if David and I didn't share, it's always good to share where your bias may or may not come from. So, David and I are from Minnesota. We're Vikings fans. Um, hence the Packer hate, but everybody's welcome here, even Packers fans. We'll let you hang out. Um, David might
I
not let
lived
you
with
hang
two.
out.
I lived with two Packers fans last year from Minnesota, so I'll tolerate it, I suppose.
But remember, we said the biggest problem with Packers fans is the Packers fans who like the Packers and then like the Timberwolves in basketball. Like if you're gonna like the Packers, you gotta like the Bucks.
Yeah, some guy named P Diddy. Hope you're listening to this.
Uh, there'll be lots of discussion like this about our fantasy league, and I think people will start to learn the people we're playing fantasy with through us. So that's something we're looking forward to sharing with you as well.
Also realizing that may not be a good nickname for the internet, but it's too late now.
Yeah, not great. What's going on with the real P Diddy, unfortunately. So we'll jump off of that and head on to the Buffalo Bills. Kind of weird talking about the Buffalo Bills not last when we're going from the top, or from the bottom, I should say. Um, Big changes with the Buffalo Bills, too. Probably one of the more surprising head coach firings, I would say, although there was quite a few of them this year in the NFL. Head coach Sean McDermott is out as head coach. Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator from last season, was promoted to the head coach, so they hired from within. Um, and they brought in Pete Carmichael Jr. from the Broncos out here in Denver to be the new offensive coordinator. He was an assistant head coach, I believe, with the Broncos. Um, Not a ton of outgoing fantasy production. We've got Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel here on the outgoings. Those guys weren't really fantasy relevant people. Um, Pretty big incoming fantasy contributor, wide receiver DJ Moore, making the move over from Chicago to Buffalo. Is this team number 3 for DJ Moore in the NFL?
Yeah, Carolina to Chicago to the Bills. And
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. David and I will break it down here for a second. In a second, looking at some stats from last year, the Bills were a lot juicier from a fantasy perspective. So they were 5th in plays per game. They did have a low pass rate over expectation. That's why James Cook was awesome. Um, they had the third highest EPA per play in the entire NFL. So every play they ran, the expected fantasy points you got from that play was way higher than other teams in the NFL. So that's why
the
with
Bills, the
sorry,
Bills. Sorry to interrupt you. The Bills are another example of a team that sometimes throw out like three random running backs and just like we were talking about earlier, like all of a sudden Ray Davis will be out there on the 1 yard line, and you're like, frick, dude! Like I got James Cook on my team. It's just another example of why it's important to stay aware of reports and stuff. Sorry to interrupt you again, but just thought of it when you're talking.
no, thanks for bringing it up. I'm far less afraid of this situation. Ray Davis and those guys were on the field because they ran the ball the second highest clip in the NFL, and James Cook needed to breathe. Um, and that's how I look at it. James Cook was awesome. James Cook was one of those people. I know you and I talked about it a lot last year, David. It was like we hated him at first. Like we were so low on him, and then we saw how far back he was in the ADP and the draft rankings and stuff, and we started looking at the players around him, and we're like, James Cook's so low that he might be a good value. Turns out he was an amazing value. I targeted him at that range that he was at in every draft I was in, and I never got him because somebody ended up taking him a little bit earlier. But yeah, James Cook had a fantastic season, and I think these numbers show why. Third highest points per game, great EPA per play, second highest running percentage in the NFL. I mean, that's a dream for a running back. Josh Allen was his normal Josh Allen self. He had a good fantasy season. And the pass catchers were pretty darn bad besides Dalton Kincaid.
You're throwing shade at your boy Keon Coleman, dude?
I love Keon, but I mean, he got scratched. I mean, he got games where he didn't
Yeah,
even
no.
play.
Yeah. Yeah, no. DJ Moore is gonna be feed families. No. I'm excited for DJ Moore
It
on the
feels like
Bills. I think.
discount. It feels like discount Stephon Diggs, right?
Yeah, and I mean, even with Diggs, when he was there, it was the other options were not great. I mean, you had what, Cole Beasley, and I mean Khalil Shakir is a good receiver. Don't get me wrong, but I think having DJ Moore there is gonna hurt him a lot as well because I think he DJ Moore is gonna kind of take his role. I think. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I mean, Shakir is one of those players that's like you watch him with your eyes on an NFL field and you see he's a good, important player to them. He's not a great fantasy player. He doesn't catch touchdowns. He doesn't get deep targets. He doesn't get a lot of run after catch. Like he's just not. He does important things for them, but it doesn't show up in the fantasy side of things. So, I mean, I think this makes him close to irrelevant from a fantasy perspective. I mean, he's a bench receiver probably, right? Um,
I'd say he
what I
has
meant
more of the upside on full PPR leagues than anything else. Like
always,
that's
always
always
has good
sticking. Yeah.
upside on full PPR. Yeah, just like Cole Beasley did when he was there, right? Um,
I love you, Josh Allen.
uh, what I meant by a discount Stephon Diggs wasn't that the situation was a little bit worse. I meant that DJ Moore's a little bit worse. But it's going to be the same thing, right? Like there's going to be nobody else besides DJ Moore to some extent, and so I don't see how he's not fantasy relevant. Um, Stephon Diggs was like, jumped into the top 10 when he went to play with Josh Allen. I don't think DJ Moore is going to do that. I don't see how he's not a wide receiver too.
Yeah, I would say I agree. I think DJ Moore's gonna be right in there in your weekly lineup if you're drafting him. He's going pretty late too in the drafts I've seen. I haven't done a ton of mocks, but when I have been, I've been very happy with the DJ Moore value. The players around him, I just don't think have nearly the amount of upside that he has. Um, and I mean, he's gonna have long targets. He's gonna have screen targets. He's gonna have crossing targets. Um, don't know if he'll be a go-to guy in the red zone. I don't know that he has to though, and he will be better than Shakir was in the red zone. His competition, obviously, like we said, is Kincaid. If anything, I think it helps Kincaid again. It's going to free him up a little bit. Think it helps Josh Allen a lot from what he had last year. I think it overall it helps everything. It'll free up the box for James Cook as well. They're not going to be able to stack the box as much as they did last year. Not saying DJ Moore's some elite threat, but when they had no offensive weapons, even then they couldn't stop James Cook. And so I'll be excited to see
James Cook
James Cook
was,
this year.
yeah, James Cook was the player that impressed me the most last year out of anybody. I mean, he was just incredible. Um, I like what you're saying all around there. I wonder about James Cook, right? Like such a high run percentage. Um, Lots and lots and lots of touchdowns last year. Usually that stuff regresses towards the mean. Um, for James Cook, it might be one of those things where he's going so high that you have to pass on him because he's getting drafted as a top 5 running back, and it's like, will he be a top 5 running back? It's really hard to repeat a season like that.
It's
Um,
drafting him at his ceiling pretty much. I mean, we've
ex-
seen his best. You're not going to really see better. And when I said that, I more meant, I think, in just the general football scheme of things, it's just going to open up opportunities for him. But in the fantasy scheme, I don't expect him to have as great of a year as he did last year.
100%. Yeah, I wasn't thinking that you were saying like go draft James Cook no matter where he is. Just speaking to the fantasy side of things, but piggybacking off the NFL side of things, like you talked about. Um, I do think it's good for the Bills that they promoted from within at head coach. I think that Joe Brady obviously had this offense doing pretty darn well. I think people would have liked a little bit more passing and a little less running in Buffalo. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but um, I do think that that's maybe where Carmichael's going to come in and kind of bring over some of that Sean Payton type of offense that gets a little more creative, a little more downfield to piggyback off of that running game that we all know Sean Payton loves. So I actually think it could be exciting from a scheme perspective for Josh Allen and for DJ Moore, big time. Anything else to add about the Buffalo Bills, David?
Are they going to be in their new stadium this season? Is that correct? I'm trying to remember. I also can't remember for sure now. I don't think it has a full dome anyway, so it probably isn't too relevant for any fantasy purposes.
I would have to double check when their new stadium opens. I think that's something maybe worth discussing when we're starting to talk about these players in draft season and where they're going and stuff. That's a good point
Yeah,
though.
I was just trying to
Buffalo
remember.
weather always plays a role, especially towards your fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily hurt Josh Allen though because he starts running more. But
No, but from a DJ Moore, Dalton
yeah,
Kincaid
yeah, for
perspective,
sure,
right? Yeah,
for sure.
100%. And gives a boost to James Cook.
Yeah.
Um, should we talk Patriots? Most fan bases suffer lulls and valleys decades long in between dynasties. Patriots seem like they were cool with short little valley there. And then they went all
Yeah,
the way to the
even in
Super
there,
Bowl
they
again.
had that Mac Jones playoff year against the Bills. That was an interesting game. And speaking of Buffalo weather, wasn't that game like a snowstorm?
You're thinking of the wrong team, David. That was out here in Denver against the Broncos. The snow game. There hadn't been a cold weather. You're talking in the playoffs, right?
I swear I watched Mac Jones play the Bills in the playoffs, and it was snowing. This
Oh,
was like
you're
2021.
talking a while ago. I thought you were talking about the crazy game in Denver this last postseason, the
No, no,
AFC
no. This is
Championship
this
game,
is no, 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 no.
where the where
I
the
was talking the Mac
Broncos
Jones
kicker couldn't even
playoffs.
kick a 20-yard field goal because the wind
No,
was so bad.
I was talking about you're saying the lull, and even when they were bad, they made the playoffs the one year, and then I forgot what the score of that game was, but it was terrible. I mean, if you like defenses, it was fun to watch, but I
Yeah,
didn't
I
enjoy
got
it.
you. You were talking about how their lulls and valleys are way lower than most people's, or way shorter than most people's, I should say.
Yeah, sorry,
Um,
should have clarified that
no,
better.
you're good. You're good. My mind immediately went to that Denver game because I couldn't believe it. The Broncos didn't have a kickoff all year that was below freezing, which in Denver is unheard of. And then it was like 70 degrees the weekend before when they played their home game in Denver against Buffalo, I want to say. I don't remember who they played and beat. And then yeah, it was just all of a sudden it was a blizzard in Denver. It was crazy. Um the Patriots have, as you would suspect, as the reigning AFC champions, the least amount of turnover of the teams in this division. No changes in coaches or coordinators, at least in the OCDC head coach. Um, I guess they did promote from within to defensive coordinator because, correct me if I'm wrong, their defensive coordinator was dealing with some health issues and stuff off the field.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think what really happened was it was Zach Kerr that was promoted. It was Terrell Williams was the defensive coordinator last year, but I believe it was
yeah,
before the season even started. He was diagnosed with those health issues and kind of stepped away. So I think Kerr was in that role anyways. So it's not really something that's changing. It's just a title change. It shouldn't really
got it.
impact
Thank you for
anything.
clarifying that. So, yeah, for the most part, coordinators are staying the same. There is some changing on the player perspective, though. Stephon Diggs and Austin Hooper, the tight end, are gone. Um, Big trade in the NFL right around draft time. AJ Brown heading over from the Eagles to the Patriots. I don't know if you've seen the stuff about AJ Brown, but AJ Brown apparently has been a Patriots fan his whole life. And I mean, he just looks like a kid in a candy store. I mean, he is just so
Bro
stoked to be
is
a Patriot.
so giddy. He looks like he just woke up on Christmas morning, like every time I see him on social media. It's like the opposite of the last year and a half in Philly. No shade to Philly, but I do not think that man was happy.
No, definitely wasn't. And like I said, I mean, I think if he could pick anywhere in the world to play, it would be New England. So, I mean, he just looks super happy. Kind of scary from an NFL perspective, too. Because if
Yeah.
AJ Brown decides to give full effort and try. Everybody knows what AJ Brown can do.
Well, yeah, he's just.
Um,
I mean, they're like looking at. I mean, fantasy wise, you lose Diggs, who is what good one out of every 4 games, maybe, and you
yeah,
add AJ Brown, who's an elite talent. It's
yeah, and I didn't even get to other incomings. Romeo Dobbs coming over from the Packers. Um, One of the most underrated Packers, I would say, the last 5 years, 4 years, however long he's been there. Just really helped them in a lot of key situations. I've seen plenty of Packers football, being
we
in
call him Mega
Minnesota,
Mind,
so
Mega Mind around here, Mister Mega Mind.
yeah, he does like to wear the big guardian cap. Um, but I think that's a great pickup to be the wide receiver too on the other side from AJ Brown. Like I don't know how you can, and then you get Pop Douglas in the slot. I mean, it's just a really nice setup there for the Patriots.
No, and you still have Booty to be like change of pace. Like he was,
I think it'll be
he had to
interesting to
step up
see how
last
much
year and
Booty
be.
plays.
I'm just saying, like he was arguably their top target last year. When Diggs started falling off towards the end of the season, like he was the one that was, and he's not even going to be on the field necessarily. It's
Yeah,
a big
100%,
improvement.
100%, right? Yeah, definitely. They also drafted a tight end in the third round. They went and got Eli Raridan from Notre Dame. Um, Seemingly fills the Austin Hooper role without spending money on Austin Hooper, I would say. I don't know how fantasy relevant he'll be with those wide receivers there, but definitely always want to be looking at day two rookies and what potential they have. Um, the Patriots, from a statistical perspective last year, they weren't a crazy pace of play team. They ran the 17th most plays in the NFL, but their pass rate over expectation was great, 2.4%. Their EPA per play was number one in the NFL, so their plays were the most valuable plays in the NFL in terms of fantasy points. They did run the ball at a high clip. I was surprised by that because Drake May was so good. But yeah, 46.89% run percentage, which was eighth highest in the NFL. And they did put up the eighth highest points per game in the NFL as well. So overall, a pretty good offense. A lot of changes in personnel, not a lot of changes in scheme and coaching. But I'll let you kind of take whatever part of their team you want to talk about, David.
Yeah, I would say going into the last. Well, I bet it's been. How long has it been since AJ Brown? It's probably closing in on a month already since he's been traded. I don't know. Well, life's been pretty busy, but going before that trade, I was kind of starting to get quite a bit lower on Drake May. Great year last year. Just obviously expect regression. And I was thinking, who's going to be that number one target? He doesn't really have anything. Romeo Dubs is a good receiver. He's not an alpha receiver. Uh, Stephon Diggs gone, obviously hurts. He had good games. But AJ Brown being added, it does a lot for the offense and for fantasy
And I
value.
think at this point in their careers, Dobbs is on par,
I
better
think
than
Dobbs
Diggs.
is. I was gonna say I actually do think Dobbs is at least the same player Diggs was, and you're adding a top tier receiver. AJ Brown can spread the field like almost nobody else in the NFL. He can get down the field. He can create separation with his body. He's extremely fast for that. The only player you really have that has that skill set is DK Metcalf. And DK Metcalf is not the same, even close to as great as AJ Brown. No shade to DK Metcalf, but AJ Brown has been a much more consistently dominant receiver in the NFL. Um, so that's awesome for Drake May. That's gonna open up his passing game a lot more, but at the same time, his rushing might be less than it was last year. He's not gonna probably have to run as much if you have an alpha receiver that's getting open that you're trusting down the field, trusting in even in one-on-one coverage. You just trust somebody to go get that. That's gonna limit the that also might limit the check downs to the running backs a little bit. But I don't expect. I actually do expect that to maybe help the running backs because it's going to spread the field a lot more, like we talked about. They don't have to worry, or they didn't have to worry about a lot of receivers, and now you kind of have to keep an eye on AJ Brown, maybe even double him at times. I think Travion Henderson slash potentially Ramondre Stevenson, that could open up their running game, some more rushing touchdowns for them. And obviously, Trayvon Henderson had weeks where he looked great, and I'm interested to see how that trends. I wish he could get more time out there, and Ramondre is another example of, I think, a less talented running back stealing work from a talented running back. Um, but in general, I think the offense boosted a lot with the AJ Brown signing. I was, like I said, very down, getting down on it, expecting big regression. I don't think they'll be as great as they were last year record wise. I think that's because I think the Bills are going to be better than they were last year. Um, and I think they're going to have a tough schedule. They just won their division. They're going to be playing the number one schedule. That's going to be tough. So I do expect some record wise regression for them, but I do think fantasy wise, it's going to be a very, very valuable offense to have pieces from if you're getting those top tier parts of their offense.
Yeah, you segued into exactly what I was going to bring up. The Patriots had like one of the most historically easy schedules of all time last year. It even went into the playoffs. I think that's the reason they made the Super Bowl, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, they played Houston when CJ Stroud decided that he didn't want to have the football with his team. It belonged with New England. Gave them, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 turnover. It was crazy. Um, then they played the Snow Bowl in Denver, where a field goal kicker couldn't even kick a field goal because the weather was so bad. And then I think the Seahawks gave them a little taste of what a high quality NFL team looks like. So I am curious to see how the Patriots do against a division champion schedule the following year. I do think that might be a little bit of a shock to the system for them. I do definitely see regressing win totals for the Patriots. Um, I'm curious, David, because you were talking about your opinions on Drake May before and after AJ Brown. I'm curious where he's kind of stacking up for you quarterback wise and how high you're willing to take him because I was a huge Drake May guy last year, as you know. I drafted him everywhere I could, super, super late, and that really, really paid off. Um, but if he's going in the same realm as those top quarterbacks, I just don't see how I can do it. But I'm curious to know your thoughts on that.
Personally, I haven't adjusted my rankings really recently since the AJ
Yeah, just
Brown
free
news
ball
for
it. Go
sure.
off the top of your
I
head.
had him at the eighth ranked quarterback pre the trade. I do think it bumps him a little bit into that like 5, 6 range potentially. Probably moves
But
him
there's
over
no
a
way that's where
certain
he's going to be getting
points.
drafted, right?
No,
Is
and
it?
based off his
Yeah.
ADP, I'm probably out. Um, I'm in on
So
his weapons. I'm out on him at that
yeah, I
ADP.
that's exactly the vibe I was getting from myself as well. Yeah, like AJ Brown, I don't see how he's not a value this year. People are still going to be scared about how bad he was last year. And we just talked about how there's tons of people, and it's going to be in your home leagues. This is how it goes. They play fantasy football for 3 or 4 months a year, and they're done when the off season's going on. So they're going to get on their fantasy draft. They're not going to have prepared at all, and they're going to see AJ Brown's name, and they're going to go, oh, heck no, because all they're thinking about is how bad AJ Brown was on a completely different team last year with a run heavy offense, a quarterback that's not that good of a thrower of the football, and they're not, and the fact that he wasn't even happy or really wanting to be there anymore. And this is where all this he's like the prime example of where all the context comes into play. I don't see how AJ Brown isn't a value this year because people are going to be so scared off about how bad he was and how bad he hurt them last year.
I think I would go as far as saying I think that AJ Brown right now is single handedly the best valued receiver in or the best value pick at receiver that you can have in the draft. And I think Drake May is potentially the most overvalued player or quarterback at his ADP. Um, it's
Clip it.
interesting.
Clip it right
It's
there. That's the Patriots offense in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's interesting. You'd
Go
be like,
get
oh,
AJ Brown. Do not take Drake May at ADP.
yeah. I mean, you're taking Drake May at ADP. It goes back to what we were just talking about with James Cook. I think if you're drafting him at his ADP, we saw his ceiling right now. Like, I don't expect him to go out and be better than that. I think his rushing, like
against
you
a way
said,
harder
his
schedule.
rushing is gonna go. It's gonna go down with that receiving core. I think it's simple as that. You the rushing upside's down. His fantasy value's down. You're drafting him at his ceiling. I like Drake May a lot. I think he's a great quarterback. I don't like him at his
He's
ADP. I'm not touching him in redraft leagues. Dynasty, it's a little bit of a different story,
yeah,
obviously.
100%.
Um,
Is he the
he's right
number
up
one?
there.
Is he the number one dynasty quarterback?
It's a good question. I've pondered it a lot. Obviously, we're restarting our dynasty league this year. I don't have the first pick. I have the last pick. My dad, I think, actually has the first pick. So
I don't have a shot at these guys either because David and I's dynasty league is a super flex league, so quarterbacks pop off the board right away. So
I
Josh
think
Allen and Drake May are going to be the
Drake
number one and
May
number two
is
pick in some
right
order.
there. If you want to go win now, I'd take Josh Allen. If you're stacking up for the future, Drake May. But that's what I say. This year, I'm not taking Drake May.
Yeah, it's really hard to say Josh Allen isn't the best dynasty quarterback, but I wonder just because of the huge age difference and how many years you're going to get out of him if Drake May, even if he doesn't perform at quite the same ceiling, if he's not the number one dynasty quarterback. That's a really interesting question for people who are starting dynasty this year.
My question is Kyler Murray the 101 in a dynasty league?
He was when we started the league a few years ago with you.
That was more than a few years ago. It was like once again, it was like 2020, and he went. You know what? It is what
You
it
took
is.
him over Mahomes and Allen.
I was making a joke about myself, and you decided to throw a shot in it.
Yeah, I had to jump on that. You drafted Kyler Murray 101 in a dynasty startup.
I was like 17 years old. Not even probably, dude. At least I didn't take a kicker in the third round.
Just for the record, that was not me. That was somebody else in the league.
Yeah, no, that was not you. But hey,
You
that
are
same
not.
guy
You are
took
not getting.
Ramondre.
You are not getting fantasy advice from someone who took a kicker in round 3 of a dynasty startup.
No, he went in the fourth instead. So don't worry about it.
No, I just drafted a team that won the championship, unlike yours.
Bruh. Do we want to talk about stacked teams? You should
Is
have
it
seen
true? Is it true or is it not true?
Guess I'm just not a winner, man. Nah. My team
I
was
do have to
goated.
say, David knows fantasy football, but this man cannot get over the hump. So many injuries, so many crappy situations. His dynasty team last year was insane. Insane. For some reason, the whole league decided to let him build a super team. I don't know why. I guess the topple me is the answer, right?
Josh Allen. All right. By the time the playoffs came around, I have like Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I can't even remember. I had like the 3 best receivers in the league. I can't remember. Oh, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, we don't have to rehash. I mean, your team was incredible.
No, I just was making a point.
My team was really good, and it was not on your level.
Trey McBride. I was loaded at every position, and I managed to lose to a guy who had like the most.
And traded you a lot of those players.
It's pretty depressing, man. God, I had it for sure.
Hey, and then I lost by less than a point in the semifinal, and I would have beat your dad in the championship by like 100 points.
Me and him had the 2 best teams. It wasn't even close. I think I lost 2 games all season, and it was because the person against me just went off. And he was right there behind me, like a couple more losses, and we both got first rounded when nobody's teams were even close to our level.
Do you remember that Monday night game? How like literally, I can't remember the player. It was a guy on the Colts, right? Yeah, I remember I had to watch P. River throw to this man. Yes, that's exactly right. It was Jonathan Taylor. He was on my dynasty team, and he was like just straddling like. I thought I was dead in the water. I was way back with just that game to go, and then Jonathan Taylor had one of his Jonathan Taylor games, and he brought me I think I lost by like 0.6, and that really hurt because at that point we already knew that David was out, and David was the team that everybody just assumed was going to walk to the championship. So I had my back-to-back championships right there, and I missed it by zero point 0.6 points. But hey,
Yeah,
that's
well, to
fantasy
go
football.
piggyback on what you're saying about me, like, let me just rip this off. 2019, or maybe it was 2020, first year I was playing like competitive fantasy football. My first pick of my entire career was Michael Thomas the year he got injured. And then I think I drafted Kamara. He was terrible. Then I drafted Kelvin Ridley, and he was sad that year. Unfortunately, I'm glad he's doing better now, but was not happy for my fantasy team. So that screwed me. And then what? I can't even remember the last ones. I started Kiki QT in a
The
playoff
biggest
fantasy football matchup. In like
the biggest one
that
I
is where I
remember
was at.
the biggest one I remember with you was Will Fuller getting suspended.
Oh, that was my year, dude. I had Will Fuller when he got PEDs after or suspended for the PEDs after the Thanksgiving game where he went for like 35.
Yeah,
Oh,
your team
that
was
guy
your
never
team was
played again
amazing.
after that. He played
Your
like two
team was
games.
that was it. Yeah, Will Fuller was done after that.
Remember when a guy in our league was rostering Will Fuller for like an entire season after he like didn't even wasn't even on a roster
In a
that next
dynasty
year?
league.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in a
yeah, yeah.
dynasty league.
Yeah. That year, David, you really got screwed by the situation. Everybody gets screwed by the situation. That's what sucks about fantasy football. I mean, in our redraft league, I had the year where I had Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill when they were the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 on the season, and I didn't win in the playoffs because I had 3 amazing running backs. 2 got hurt, and Austin Eckler got COVID during the COVID season. So I mean, that's just how it goes sometimes.
And not to, but like I understand what I'm doing. Like for example, in our dynasty league, I have the second best win percentage all time in our league, but it hasn't translated. I'm like the Minnesota Vikings.
But
And
zero
right where I'm from.
championships.
That's what I just said. I win in the regular season, and then I just this isn't Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl. It's me.
The moral of the story is David knows fantasy football, but he's had some hard luck. So just because he's had some hard luck doesn't mean you shouldn't trust some of his advice.
It's the year, man. It's the
But
year.
there is only one person on this podcast that has won multiple championships over different leagues. Should we end on that? That was a good clip. Clip that. Um, should we jump into some division predictions for the wonderful AFC East?
Yeah.
All right. I can see David's answers right here in our show doc. We're kind of boring. We're pretty similar, but I've got the Buffalo Bills finishing first. I don't see how they don't improve from last year with the upgrades they made. And like we talked about, I think New England, it's going to be just as equal or even more a product of New England regressing a little bit. So I've got Buffalo in first. I've got the New England Patriots still finishing second. I have a feeling they're going to be on the cusp of a wild card team, depending on how the rest of the AFC picture feels. 6-7 seed, something like that. I've still got the Dolphins finishing third, and I've got the Jets finishing fourth. I don't necessarily think the Dolphins are better than the Jets. I just think the Jets want to lose and the Dolphins want to win.
So, like Drew, I have the Bills in first place. I think they're going to be much improved, like I've said already. And then I have the Patriots right behind them. I did mock up kind of my predictions for the playoffs overall, and I had the Patriots as the six. So I do have them sneaking in as a wild card. I
Okay, so
think
we're in the same range there.
they are better. So yeah, very very similar there. The difference for me is I have the Jets in third place. I if you
David
didn't hear me
swinging for the
earlier,
fences on the
I
Jets.
am not loving the Miami offense. I don't love the Miami defense either for being a defensive minded team. So I'm calling my shot now. I think the Jets sweep the Dolphins this season, and the Jets get third spot, overperform, and miss out on one of the top quarterbacks, and their coach still gets fired.
Well, if
That's my
they do that,
prediction.
they're just going to trade the first round picks they have and still get a quarterback. But
But that's my I just meant with their own pick.
yeah,
And then yes, I have the Dolphins in last. I'm just
I
out.
just I disagree with you there, but we're debating third and fourth. Doesn't really matter. Stay away from those offenses besides Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Clip it.
Better or the
Um,
worse? Who's
I
the
don't
better
I
of the
don't
worse?
I don't know if there's a Miami player I would touch, just like we talked about earlier. So, um, Achan's a great player, obviously, but at his ADP, I have a feeling I won't touch a Miami player. Um,
Hey, who's that?
for
Is
me,
that one guy
for me, the
still
difference
there?
between them is the coaching, dude. Aaron Glenn, like, bless his heart, he's a train wreck. Um, and
He's fun to
I think
watch.
I think that's not what you want to hear about your coach. Um, but I think Jeff Halfley, right? Like he's gonna do what a good defensive head coach is gonna do, right? Like he's gonna come in, he's gonna make the scheme fit the players better. They're gonna play better on defense, even if the quality of the talent doesn't necessarily jump up a huge amount. And I do think they're really gonna try to run the football between Achan and a mobile quarterback, and I just think they're going to shorten games. They're going to keep games closer. They're going to end up winning more games because they have a better coaching staff and scheme. It's as simple as that. And like I said, I don't really think the Jets care if they win. I think anybody in the front office cares if they win. The only person who probably cares if they win a ton of games is Aaron Glenn. And he cared if they won a lot of games last year. And we saw how that went. So I still got the Jets in fourth, but I like the Jets for people who are going to start jumping on the Drew hates the Jets. I like the Jets. Jets are one of my
Jets, 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 Jets.
the Vikings and the Steelers. Those are my teams forever and always. But the Jets are like in that tier of teams that I'm not a fan of the teams, but I hope they do well. Like I like when the Jets are semi doing well. So it's been a long time, but I like it. So I hope the Jets do well, but for their sake, I kind of hope they don't because I want them to get a good quarterback and actually be able to compete in this division for a long time. Anything to add about the AFC East, David, before we jump into our last segment? We're doing pretty decent on time, I think.
No, I don't think so. Just that's my hot
Okay.
take with the Jets. I'm sticking to it.
I love it. Hot takes all around. Um,
Don't clip that at
so
the end of the year, by the way, if it doesn't work out.
please, social media, clip that. We'll probably clip it, knowing us. We got to have some juicy content out there, right? Got to get people thinking about fantasy football again. Um, just to repeat before we hop off here, we're gonna have these podcasts up on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. The Fantasy Fax Podcast, Fax spelled Fax. We're over on X at the Fantasy Facts, TikTok fantasy.facts, Instagram fantasy.facts. So go ahead and find us over there. We do not have a website up currently as of the recording of this podcast. That is because the platform we are using does not allow you to create a website until you have your first episode. So there will be a website once this episode is posted, and that website will be included on the link tree on all of our social media outlets. Last thing we're going to do before we sign off today, David and I wanted to just have a little section at the end of every episode where we kind of sign off with a Bible verse. David and I's faith is very important to us, and we want to make sure that we just recognize that all this awesome fantasy football stuff that we do and get to talk about wouldn't be possible without him. So we're gonna let David read a quick verse that he picked for today, just to kind of sign off and send everybody off on a high note, hopefully, with something to think about as well, in addition to all the great fantasy football stuff. If you're not a Christian, please do not feel any obligation to listen, or if your heart desires, please do. Please don't feel like if you're not a Christian, you're not welcome here on this podcast. We love and want everybody here talking fantasy football with us, experiencing the highs and lows of the game we love so much. But this is just a little part of David and I that we feel like we want to share. And if you choose to partake in that part of the podcast, we leave that totally up to you. But regardless, we want everybody here participating in the rest. So go ahead, David.
Yeah, so the verse I picked today kind of is what you're saying, that there's more to everything than fantasy football, but it's just awesome that we're able to enjoy fantasy football. So I picked Colossians 3:23, which says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters." I just think it's a great reminder that everything we do in our life, well, it's awesome and rewarding on the earth sometimes, it's just a reminder that everything has a bigger picture, and we're doing something all the time just for the one above us, and to remember that. And when we're doing things even that we don't enjoy, try to do those glorifying to him, instead of trying to be negative and focusing on all the worldly distractions. It's a nice reminder, especially for me. The last few weeks I've been working for the PGA, and I've been putting in 90-hour weeks of manual labor, and it's been helpful for me to remember that, there's more to this than just this job, and that I try to stay positive and bring that aspect to the workplace, because I want to be glorifying to my Lord. And uh, I think that we can do that in anything, including talking about fantasy football. I think it's important to kind of take a moment and recognize that, and just remember that Jesus loves you, and that uh, everything you do can be glorifying to him regardless of what it is, and to keep that in your mind as you go through this week.
Amen, brother. Um, um, Next show, we're going to be talking about the AFC North. So we're going to get to talk about Drew's AFC North champion, Pittsburgh Steelers. I have to plug that in there because, man, they are tough to watch once it comes playoff time. But we'll cover the Steelers and all the other AFC North teams next week. Or not next week, sorry, on Friday. So looking forward to doing that with you guys. We'll kind of follow the same format, talk about who's coming in, who's going out. It's kind of a juicy division too, so I'm looking forward to it. Lots of coaching changes, lots of personnel changes, so it should be good stuff. We did a great job on our time goal for episode 1, so I'm feeling good. And if you don't have anything to add, David, we're going to sign off.
Sounds good. Thanks everybody for watching.
Yes, everybody, we appreciate you. Please share with your friends, family, fantasy football league mates. If you find this content entertaining, helpful, anything. We're always looking to build and grow, and want to share with more people, and hopefully really turn this into something. So please don't hesitate to share. Please don't hesitate to comment, like, all that kind of stuff. Follow on our social medias. We really appreciate all of you. And we're looking forward to talking AFC North next episode. Peace out from the Fantasy Fax crew.